I have played many shooters, from classics like Call of Duty and Doom to indie titles like Nightmare Reaper and Heavy Bullets. And yet, in all of my 20 to 30 years of playing games, not once have I sat down and played a Halo game. Yeah, I know, how dare I. Look, I do have an explanation for this, okay? Hear me out, please. During the height of Halo's career, circa late 2000s, just about every game studio was putting out their own gritty military sci-fi shooter. From my perspective, in the winter it's a gun-toting world, and I wanted games with more personality, with worlds and mechanics I hadn't seen before. At that time, I just couldn't help but view every FPS as the same game. And so, I stuck with my own pool of racing, fighting, party, and platformer games. Even though I had an Xbox 360 throughout high school, the closest I got to Halo was messing around in Reach's Forge map with friends. I just couldn't care about the Chief and his games. It's not that I didn't like them, I just couldn't care. Until today.
Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well. Cortana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
If you follow me on Twitter or pay attention to the MojoPlays YouTube stories, you might be aware that I have recently become a new owner of an Xbox Series S. I've been out of the Xbox ecosystem for nearly a decade now, and after reading some of your suggestions for games to play, I finally decided it was time. Time to step out of my comfort zone. Time to give the Chief a chance and see if Halo can capture me just as it did for millions back in 2001. Will it be enough to invigorate an interest in me? Will I end up jumping the PlayStation ship and joining the Xbox family? Will it entice me to
finishing this fight?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. My name is Ty with MojoPlays, and this is a retro review of Halo Combat Evolved. Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. And hey, you want to talk Xbox? Got a suggestion for a new retro review episode? Follow me on Twitter at GhostWriterTyler.
Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am.
Before we continue, I'd like to clarify just a couple of things. Yes, I am aware that Halo Reach is the first game in the story, but I felt it was more important to experience the first game historically, as it may set up my expectations for later titles. Plus, the newer games may have evolved better than the original game. Speaking of which, I played this through the Master Chief Collection, since this is the original game in its most commercially available form. Plus, I have Xbox Game Pass, and I gotta take advantage of that. Please, understand.
I appreciate your concern, Cortana, but it's not up to me.
Honestly, I'm rather shocked at how quickly I became invested in Halo's story after booting up the first game. Combat Evolved opens with Captain Keyes and his crew being attacked by the Covenant, an alien race that plots to use a colossal ring world to destroy mankind. As faceless soldier with a sexy deadpan voice Master Chief, it's up to you and the other nameless default soldiers to stop the Covenant and save the human race. Though considering how long Halo has been going on for, I can tell the Chief has yet to succeed.
The Covenant found something, buried in this ring, something horrible, and now they're afraid.
Something buried?
Combat Evolved doesn't really do anything remarkable that other first-person shooters hadn't done before. However, I wasn't really expecting it to, and the game actually did a lot of things to separate itself and make my experience with it truly unique. Environments were diverse and detailed with views that you couldn't witness in other titles back in 2001. There were a handful of times where I stopped just to look at all of Halo, the ring world, from one side to the other, and ponder how the Covenant managed to create such a massive structure. I honestly didn't think I'd be this curious about a franchise I had previously been so apathetic towards. Unfortunately, there were a few times where levels started to overstay their welcome, the most notable ones being Assault on the Control Room, 343 Guilty Spark, and the most notorious mission of all, the Library. This is where levels started to really feel like they were being copy-pasted, as you'll quickly notice the same 3 rooms being reused several times throughout one whole mission. It ends up making the experience incredibly stale during extensive play sessions. I get having to use recycled assets as much as possible to save time, but this was ridiculous.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Gunplay, on the other hand, wasn't anything I was freaking out about, both in a good way and a bad way. See, I can be a little picky when it comes to gunplay. Maybe it's because of how much I play boomer shooters, but I prefer my shooters to be like a stick of dynamite. The reload time is the fuse, with my trigger as the bang. I like the suspense between shots. Unless I was using the sniper rifle, it often felt like I had to just keep shooting and pray to God that my shots would hit where I was aiming. This was mostly because of how unnecessarily large my reticles were, and while enemies do react to getting hit, I wish there was something in the UI to confirm my hits when I'm hiding behind cover, similar to how, Call of Duty and Overwatch do it. Perhaps this was a problem that just wasn't considered back in 2001 when Bungie was developing the game, but it makes me question why 343 Industries couldn't implement a simple feedback mechanic for the Master Chief Collection. This isn't to say I disliked all of the combat, I actually rather enjoyed it, for the most part. Weapons such as the Needler sniper rifle and plasma grenades were fun to use, as the way they functioned helped break up the monotony of having to use the standard assault rifle. AI was way smarter than I anticipated too. They know how to take cover, they know when to throw grenades, and they know when to spot you when you are clearly visible. That's something not a lot of shooters seem to understand. Thing is, I can only say that for the enemy AI. As for allies, well, Keyes got himself off several times when I was playing on heroic difficulty. Escort missions, am I right?
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks.
The one thing I found most surprising was just how goofy Halo actually was. I speak as someone who was once an outsider and only knew about the franchise through its marketing. How many times did I get bombarded with ads featuring dramatic music and intense sci-fi shooter action? By the time Halo 4 had started blasting itself across the internet and TV, I had begun wondering if the games industry had forgotten how to have fun. Imagine my delight when I finally picked up Combat Evolved and noticed the silliness that had been lying underneath the marketing's overly dramatic exterior. Grunts and jackals cower in fear and run away when they find themselves getting overpowered. You bet I chased them down, elbowing them in the back and cackling like a madman. And wait for the game to bring out my psychotic side by planting sleeping grunts on occasion. Nothing more satisfying than pelting someone in the face with your elbow while they're taking a nap. I also wasn't expecting to see surviving companions smack talk and shoot at Covenant corpses. That little touch made my entire experience even more hilarious.
You heard the lady. Move like you got a purpose.
I may have some problems with Halo Combat Evolved, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad it didn't change. There was something charming about it, something about how early 2000 shooters were made that you can't find in newer games. It's a relic preserved to revisit a time in Xbox's history, a time where people had a reason to pay attention to the newest contender in the console wars. I only wish the level design had a little more thought put into it, and the library really made me hesitant in returning to the franchise. At first. However, after talking to an in-house Halo expert we have at MojoPlays, I'm a little more confident in seeing the franchise evolve. I'm not about to become a massive Halo fan, but I do have way more respect and admiration for the franchise than I originally had. And frankly, I'm really glad I played Combat Evolved instead of starting with Reach like I originally planned. Despite having spent most of my time in the Nintendo and PlayStation ecosystems, I am stoked now more than ever about playing through all of the Halo games while I wait for Infinite to come out. After all these years of wondering why so many people were constantly excited about Halo, I can finally see it. Don't be surprised if you start seeing YouTube stories of me wearing a Master Chief helmet.
It's finished.
No, I think we're just getting started.
Did you enjoy the review? Check out some of our other videos and comment which games you'd like to see covered in future retro reviews. Until then, my name is Ty, and I'll see you soon.